In this video, I'm going to talk about what made my relocation fail. And now that I've learned so many things, I want to share what makes a relocation successful. So over time, I realized that there are three pillars to a successful relocation. The first pillar is you need money. Okay, that's a no-brainer. Number two, you need to have the right mindset. And number three, knowledge. A lot of us, I'm going to talk about knowledge now. A lot of us left Zimbabwe 20 years ago. And because we've lived in foreign lands for a very long time, we've sort of like developed a totally different mindset than that we had before. So when we look at Zimbabwe, we're looking at it as the country that it used to be 20 years ago. And that's the biggest mistake that you can make. In my case, the money was not a problem. The mindset was not a problem. The knowledge for me was the biggest problem because I went there with book knowledge, and also knowledge which was based on perception, knowledge that was based on what I think was happening. But the reality is, no, it was totally different. What I found on the ground and what was in my head was not really working hand in hand. So in my case, when I went back to Zimbabwe, I had a mindset that the people on the ground will appreciate the things that my vision, the things that I want to do for them, the things that I want to do for the community and so on. That was my story that I had in my head. But it doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a story in your head, that's what people think on the ground. Again, I still had this idea that, the people that we knew or how people were back in the day is pretty much how it is today. And because I've lived here in this country for a very long time, the way things are done here, the society, trust, transactions, honesty, all of that, it was ingrained in my head, and I thought that was automatically going to work on the ground. And that's the part where I say knowledge is very, very important. So here's the thing now. Having the money and having the mindset, because deciding you want to relocate is not easy. It's not easy at all. It takes a very strong mindset. So here we are. I'm in Zimbabwe, very enthusiastic, so much energy and so on. But what let it fail was the fact that people on the ground had their own ideas. So I've realized now that the psychology and the mentality of people on the ground is totally different. It's totally different to what we think, especially if you've lived in the diaspora. If you look at, and you know what, the funny thing is I discussed this with a good friend of mine. He's a CBT, cognitive behavioral therapist. You know, when you go to the ground and say to someone who works for you, here's my vision, this is what I think is going to work. They have never experienced that. They can't imagine it. So to them, it's information that's going into their head and going out as soon as possible because they've been accustomed to living for today. So you'll find that someone, common sense to you and me or to people in the diaspora would be, but if this guy does a good job, I'm going to give him even more work. That's what you are thinking, and that's the common thing, right? To them, they want money today, and they don't even care about the other jobs that you might give them in the future. They don't care about that. You are the one who cares about it, and it makes a lot of sense to you. That is why you find someone who come and do a bad job, move on to another guy, does a bad job, and continue. I even had conversations with a lot of young guys who are in their different professional fields. And I say to them, do you know how powerful it is to do a very good job, perfect, without stealing, without being deceptive? You can start building a number of customers. And through those customers, you're going to get word of mouth, advertised, absolutely free. But if you are dishonest with 5, 10 people, they are going to carry the negative word, and it's going to be very difficult for you to get even more jobs because you're going to be relying on getting a job which has to be from someone that hasn't worked with you, and you have to be praying that that person hasn't spoken to the guy that did your previous job. So anyway, if I had known what I know now 3 years ago, okay, 3 years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago, I would do things differently. And this is where you need to take the lessons. Number one, when you work with people on the ground, it doesn't matter if it's your parents, if it's a cousin, if it's a brother, they have to have the best interest in you. And this is where we fall short. Same thing applies. When we work with guys on the ground, our workers, we think that it's going to be very easy, for them to do our jobs and to make things work. That's what's in our head. And this is the knowledge that we're lacking on the ground. Sometimes people will tell you, go into chickens, all you need is to invest X amount of money, and before you know it, it's all working fine. But when I look at it right now, it's not easy. If you see someone managing 1,000 broilers every cycle, there's a lot of skill that goes into that. A lot of skill. And that's what I've realized now. I know a lot of people say, for any project, you need to be on the ground. As for me personally, the 2 years that I lost a lot of money, I was there on the ground. I was there. I wasn't doing cell phone farming. I was there on the ground. You guys, you saw the videos. I was there. But you know how I lost all that money? It's because I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the knowledge. I didn't have the knowledge with the chickens. I didn't have the knowledge with building, because I was there, and yet I have people building a wall which will fall, which is so flimsy that it will just fall over, right? I was there when people were saying, okay, we're going to build some bricks for you. But if I don't have the knowledge or the know-how or a team that is strong enough to advise me the right way, how am I going to make things work? So whether you're there on the ground or not, it doesn't really make a big difference. But of course, I'm not dismissing the whole idea and promoting the idea that you need to be working for the diaspora to make things work on the ground. No, I'm saying that knowledge is very powerful, and a lot of us underestimate it. You'll find that there are people here in the diaspora that are running their projects on the ground. They're working very good and they're working fine, but they're able to pull it off because they have a team on the ground which they can trust, or at least they have a team on the ground who are doing the right job. They're doing what they're supposed to do. So all in all, if you really look at this, it is not easy to relocate without these three pillars. And now a lot of us, we are stuck in this cycle where we are in the sunk cost fallacy. I mean, guys, for those of you who don't know what that is, Google it. Sunk cost fallacy. A lot of us are stuck in that loop where we keep putting money in because we've invested a lot and we don't want that investment to go to waste. So we keep putting in money. And a lot of you say to me, Ruwa, why don't you just fire these people? Why don't you just do this? Why don't you just stop? Sunk cost fallacy. That's where I'm at. And that is very, very difficult. It's a psychological thing. So please Google it. Sunk cost fallacy. Maybe some of you're like me. You started a project back home. You're still pouring money. You haven't even gotten results from it. Not even any. That's where the problem is. So these three pillars are very, very powerful, because you can have the money all you want. Maybe you've saved 50, 60, 100,000 and you want to relocate. Yes, the money is there. The mindset there is there. You really want to go and you are certain about it and you're convinced that this is the right thing to do. Do you know where you're going to fail? It's the knowledge on the ground. You want to buy something as basic as a door for your house. They'll tell you a door costs, $100. The moment you open your mouth, they know you're not from there. They'll charge you $100 for it. But if you have people that know what's happening on the ground, you can get it for a fraction of the price. But it doesn't even end there. While you're there, perhaps maybe you have your brother or you have your cousin or whoever it is that's trying to help you out. They are trying to get money from you too. So it becomes a vicious cycle of you trying to fight against people who are trying to, take your money. Because in their head, you have so much money. And you know why we also fall short? We come from, in the diaspora, generally speaking, our societies are very trusting, right? So when you go back home, you'll find that You're going to go there with a soft heart. You care so much. So the person that's selling you the door, you might even give them extra money because you can see they need the money. But they don't even looking at that. All they want is to charge you a lot, and that's it. But because you have a kind heart, you have a lot of sympathy for what you're seeing on the ground. Your guard is down. Your guard is down. That's how we get scammed easily. So that's the part which is very, very difficult. You can have everything in place, but it won't work out because the Zimbabwe that we thought we knew many, many years ago is not the Zimbabwe that's there right now. It's brutal on the ground. I'll give you an example of what's happening right now. I know someone who's in hospital. Everything that needs to be sorted is there. The medicines, the theater has been paid for. Everything is in place. But you know what's the stumbling block? The doctor needs money. He won't perform the procedure because he wants some little money on the side. In quotation marks, there's a queue at the theater. So to jump the queue, you need to pay me X amount of money. Now, if you're from the diaspora, that is infuriating because you're used to a system where you get to the hospital, you see a nurse, you see a doctor, everything just works. So when you go to Zimbabwe now, you are going to be so upset and so infuriated and you'll be so confused why things aren't just working. But that's the knowledge of what's happening on the ground that we are lacking. You're going to be so frustrated by so many things. So these are the sort of things that I wasn't prepared for when I went on the ground because I just thought everything was going to be smooth. Yes, people can say, you're rushed. You're okay, you're stupid. You can't do this. You can't do that. It is not as straightforward as that, especially if you've lived in the UK or to a greater degree. I mean, I can't speak for America. I can't speak for Canada and New Zealand, Australia. I can't speak for that. I'll speak for the UK. Here, there's a system. And you can imagine, if you came here in your 20s and now you're in your mid-40s, your whole adult life is in a foreign country. You're going to adopt the ways of the foreign country. So that's sort of like is now embedded in your system. And that's what automatically you're working with when you get back to Zimbabwe. So it's tough. So we're only left now with a situation where if we are going to do any projects on the ground, we just have to work with professionals. If you want a house built, now we have to pay 20% more because we can't really negotiate for a small local guys to build your house. We can't, because those are the guys who steal the cement. Those are the guys who will tell you, you know what, I forgot, we need to buy this extra thing, that extra thing. There isn't really a straight structure, because sometimes, as diasporans, we also have a problem where we want to go for cheap. That's the other problem we have. We want to go for cheap. I remember I did the same thing with my solar system. The first instance, I know I didn't make it public. I probably talked about it. The first approach to having my solar system, I used a local company, which were advertising that they do solar systems. But the amount of service I got from that was so frustrating that I had to threaten them to say, look, I'm going to put you guys on the internet, and I'm going to pay for all the advertisements so that people know what your company is about. Because if you are treating me like this, I don't want the next person to fall victim to what you guys are doing. So I am going to make it public that this is how you guys work. That to them was a very big threat. So they had to do my job, you see, by force. So they had to do the right job. They'll promise you they're coming at 6 o'clock at night, and then they'll come at 2 in the morning. I mean, imagine what sort of service is that? And then while they're there at 2 in the morning, there's no lights. They're using their phone light to do the job. You tell them, okay, come the next day. They're not. They come the next day. They come late too. They want to go on top of your roof to put solar panels. Imagine at night with cell phone light. So that in itself, it's crazy, absolutely crazy, and yet you're paying them full amounts of money. So in those situations, this is where you just have to pay a professional company to just do it. Of course, you're going to pay 20% more. It's going to be 20% more expensive, but that's the situation where once it's done professionally, you get a guarantee of some sort and you're good to go. So that attitude needs to be carried across board. So solar systems, boreholes, building work, even contractors to work with our farming projects. Sometimes we go on YouTube, we take a look on YouTube and see, what's happening on YouTube. Oh, we can do this, we can do that. You go on the ground, you try to do this. There is a big curveball your way. You don't even know what to do, and you've lost half a hectare of whatever it is, maybe potatoes. Sometimes you do it well. You have a bunch of watermelons, you have a bunch of tomatoes. When it comes to selling it, your parents are on the ground. Your mom, your dad, they're on the ground. They're taking care of things. But guess what? You think that you're going to get profit from that. The parents are thinking, this is mine. And they will make decisions that I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and override your decisions. Because the parent thinks, okay, this is mine. And besides, my son has, he has all this money. He's in the diaspora. I took him to school. What's his problem? That's the mentality. So you've put in 20,000, 30,000 into that whole system, and you won't get even a penny out of it. And what's even more crazy is some diasporans, they are trying to set things up back home so that when they get on the ground, they can just take on from where they've built. And this is the challenge. You cannot set up something back home and go there on the ground, because the source of income is the diaspora. You have to continue working to support the projects. So it's a catch-22 situation. Either you just wait here in the diaspora indefinitely and then collect all the money and then build something back home. But sometimes you want to have something going on the ground already, which is what I was trying to do as well. Spend less time in England and spend more time on the ground. But it gets very, very complicated. It gets very, very complicated. So the only way I can see that works right now is to get into groups of people who can put their heads together and work on specific projects. That's the only way it can work. That's the only way it can work. If one person is dedicated to go on the ground, manage it with expectations of the fellow diasporans, and then while you're on the ground, you make sure that things are done with your specifications, while the rest of the team is in the diaspora working as normal. That way, we're cutting out people on the ground, which are all our family members, our cousins, our best friends, you name it, because this is where the stumbling block is. So on a bigger scale, this is where we have Kumusha Investments. It's a collaborative idea where the investors put money into one single project, right? And then there's a team, me and my team on the ground there in Zimbabwe, making sure things are done according to a specific standard. I think that in itself is the only way we can curb this, because it's a tough one. Even right now, I'm looking at the relocation idea. How is that going to work? How is that going to work without what I'm proposing? I can't see it working. And everyone will have their own individual challenges. I'm not saying every single person can't do a project from the UK. Yes, they can. They can, but for the most part, yeah, it's a bit difficult. So for those three pillars, yes, you can have the money. 2, you can have the mindset. But that knowledge of how things need to be done on the ground, that's the biggest part which will break these pillars. So you need a combination of these 3 pillars for everything to work. Let me know what you think in the comments box, if you agree or you disagree. let me know in the comments box. And if you'd like to share your experience as well, that would be great, so that at least we can learn from each other. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again in the next one. Take care.